The fact that you launched the company with Olivia and then got pregnant, it almost allowed you to be in this whole other realm because menstruating and hormonal imbalances and, postpartum are completely different phenomenons altogether. And you only know that after. And so you're kind of iterating the company as you're going through the life stage yourself.
When we were launching Hummingway, a lot of the feedback we got was like, well, what about, this phase of a woman's life? Or what about this phase? Or what about menopause? And Olivia and I said, we don't know that world. We want to come from a very honest place and kind of look at what's the root cause of the problem and where is my community? And I mean, anything in women's health, I feel like there's a lot of kind of black holes basically that we need to be able to open up and to be able to educate people on. And the only way for me to really kind of know was to firsthand experience it.
There is no hood like parenthood. Hi, I'm Kanika Chadda Gupta. I'm a former CNN journalist, mom of 3, including twins, and host of That's Total Mom Sense, the podcast. Now, if I had $1 every time I heard, gee, you have your hands full. On my show, I interview change makers on their life lessons, legacy, and superpower of intuition, which I call our mom sense and dad sense. I've had the privilege of working with Mom 2.0, March of Dimes, and the White House, and have had some pretty amazing parents on my show.
Hey, what's up? I'm Kelly Rowland.
Hi, this is Chelsea Clinton. It's me, Bobbi Brown. Can't wait to share my story.
That's Total Mom Sense is a production of the Evergreen Podcast Network. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube so you never miss an episode. To join my tribe, visit that'stotalmomsense.com and follow me on Instagram at Kanika Chadda Gupta. Now let's dive into today's episode. What do vampires and parents have in common? Well, we don't sleep at night. Just kidding, but not really. We don't. Speaking of vampires, who is a diehard Twilight fan? I know I am. I am over the moon like a howling werewolf that I'm interviewing Greene Khoury today. She got her big break in 2008 as Alice Cullen in the Twilight Saga, and she went on to star in films like Skateland, A Warrior's Heart, Summer Blood, Apparition, CBGB, to name a few. As Ashley rapidly rose to fame with her cult classics, she immediately solidified herself as a champion for women from all walks of life. For over a decade, she is aligned with charities and movements that support and empower women, like Donate My Dress, No More, and A21, cementing herself as a trusted advocate for wellness, femininity, and gender equality. An enterprising spirit, it's no surprise Ashley delved into entrepreneurship. As co-founder of Hummingway, along with her sister-in-law, Olivia Khoury, they aim to transform how all women, anyone with a period, view their reproductive health. Hummingway is laser focused on providing customers with a suite of innovative, non-toxic, effective products designed to support our hormonal health. The duo is on a mission to have a positive impact and offer alternative choices for menstruators everywhere who are frustrated with the industry's lack of comprehensive solutions. Through Hummingway, Ashley is eager to leverage her work ethic, network, and platform for this powerful cause with a commitment to excellence and building trust. And we're doing exactly that today on our show. She and her husband, Paul, and their beautiful daughter, Kingsley, live in LA. Ashley, welcome to That's Total Mom Sense.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I mean, I have to kick off with that vampire statement. It's like, what is sleep? What is it? Is it a nice to have?
Yeah, I'm like, I should have listened. Everyone's like, when you're pregnant, just take all the sleep. And of course, me being me, like, we had a lot going on. Like I was actually hosting a podcast and I wanted to get as much work done with Hummingway as possible. And I was on set while I was pregnant at one point. And so did not listen to the sleep while you're pregnant because when you give birth, that option is just gone. But you know, what's beautiful about it though, is you do adapt. There's something, and you learn to nap. But yeah, I often think about having more than one child now just to put things in perspective for myself. I know you have twins. I'm like, I don't even know. I don't know how you do it and you did it.
I don't know. I just feel like you rise to the challenge somehow and you surprise yourself. You're like, wow, I handled that. And, I was like nervous like at every phase. And then now looking back, the twins are 6 and my younger one is 5. We got through it. We got through 3 in diapers, all those feedings. Like it's just when you're through the weeds, and it's not like I'm an empty nester and I can be like, well, back in the day, but it's still a win, and I feel like every memory, oh my God, every time that they were perched on my shoulder, like,
oh, it's not just those moments. It makes it all okay. Like Kingsley's at the age now where she falls asleep and I just linger for like an extra 15 minutes because she's 10 and a half months. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is what they say that you're going to miss for sure. Because listen, the first 4 months postpartum was not a walk in the park. And I was like, women are incredible. I like have such a respect for my mom now. I feel like I have to now wait until I have children for Kingsley to understand, but like until you do it, you just don't understand how all encompassing it is and how we somehow manage to keep this human alive and have them thrive, but also continue on with our life and continue our relationships and be a good mother and daughter and wife. And I'm now in the point of where I'm like actually enjoying Kingsley to the fullest, where like the first 4 months for me, I was just like, and I tried to be pretty transparent about it without scaring people, but I was just like, this is not easy. This is extremely hard. I don't know what I'm doing. I feel like I'm never going to sleep again. The sleep deprivation alone just like makes everything way more challenging to manage. And then, your hormones are all over the place and you literally have to relinquish control and just understand that this is part of the journey and that you will get through it. But it was, for me, I wish more people were open and honest about that it is, you can be exhausted and overwhelmed and blissful at the same time. And I feel like sometimes people don't understand that those things can coexist. And the second you say like, this is really hard, and sometimes I'm sad and I burst out into tears, they're all of a sudden like, oh my gosh, you have postpartum depression. And I'm like, no, it is normal that it is not easy. And we need to kind of understand that, and we need to educate people on that. And we need to give people kind of options and avenues and a community that they can speak to so that they don't feel so alone in this journey. Because it's tough.
100%. Oh my gosh, you are like preaching to the choir right now. I feel like it's something that I like to advocate for on the show, and we need to normalize so many facets to pregnancy, parenthood, which is a team sport, and just the bodily changes we go through. I can't wait to delve into all of that, but I want to take us back to when you were a young Ashley. And when you were a kid, looking up to your mom and your parents, what was it like growing up for you?
So my parents both grew up with not a lot. They were poor, and they were kind of determined to make sure that we had a better opportunity and a better life. And so the way that happened is that my dad worked around the clock and my mom stayed at home and raised us. And my mom did a really good job of making sure that we still knew my dad and understood him, because sometimes he would go to work before we woke up and he would be back after we went to sleep, but he would spend weekends with us. And really, it makes me emotional now to think about, because I'm like, they just did such an incredible job. And it was incredibly difficult for them to be as present as they were and made sure that they protected us. And I think that's so important, and really did the best that they possibly could to raise us. I think, the goal is each generation to be able to give more and to have more understanding. And I feel like we have so many tools. Like if you look at mental health now, we have such a toolbox and we have such an understanding of how our actions affect our children and what we can do to help their growth process. It's just looking back now, I'm like, it's very cool to see how much they did for us and how they really did put us front and center. And it's a very selfless thing to raise children the way that they raised us. So we've always had a good relationship, but now that I have a kid, I probably talk to them like 3 times a day, asking, for guidance and help in scenarios, or just venting. And they're certainly my safe place when it comes to that world.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love it. And volunteering starts in the home, and the service and sacrifice that they dedicated to their family, it pays in dividends. It's made a lasting effect on you and how you're going to raise your daughter and so on. So that's just beautiful.
Yeah.
And did you always know you wanted to be in front of the camera and act and, put yourself out there like that?
No, not really. Like the other thing that I appreciate is that when I was a kid, like I just wanted to be a kid, and we were always outdoors and we were always using our imaginations. And my brother and I are 18 months apart. I don't remember having that. Like, I want to be this, I want to do that. I feel like when I hit middle school was when I kind of started looking, I was really interested in criminal law, and psychology were super interesting to me. But I didn't have, like, I grew up in Jacksonville, Florida, and it isn't really like the most artistic place in the world. You don't really have a lot of opportunity at your fingertips. And so for a long time, I just didn't even recognize that this was a life that I could live. And this was a passion that I could pursue. And then I kind of ended up falling into an acting class and immediately was kind of like, oh, this is what I want to do. This is really fun. And so started to pursue that, and then had, the conversation with my parents of like, I want to go to law school. I want to go to Hollywood. Is that cool? And my dad was like, absolutely not. And my mom kind of said, listen, we've always told her that she can be anything that she wants to be. And this is not ideal for us, but we have to let her try. We can't, they've always taught me that, like, your word is sacred and you don't go back on your word, and it's very important. And so they said, okay, you have, a year to go out there and see what happens. And thankfully, it worked out, and I'm super grateful because now that I have my own child, I'm like, no, you can't be an actor. No freaking way.
Yeah, it takes trust. I mean, real talk. That's amazing though. I love that they let you spread your wings. And that's another phase that we're gonna have to embrace as moms one day.
I know. And it's something we already think about, where I'm just like, how do we create that relationship? Like, you want to be, obviously your child's protecting them is first and foremost, loving them, protecting them, but creating a relationship that is safe enough for them to feel confident, being so open and honest with you, so that hopefully when there are anything, or there are things that are questionable or things that happen to them or decisions they want to make, they include you in the conversation. We'll see how that plays out, but that's the goal, right?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%. And then tell us about just the phenomenon that is Twilight. I mean, I feel like every generation has something that they can draw from the series.
Yeah.
And the fact that we get to watch it streaming whenever we want is just amazing. Yeah. Just working with the cast that, are also mega stars, from Kristen Stewart to Rob Pattinson, Taylor Lautner, Kellen Lutz, the whole lot. I mean, all of you.
Yeah, I mean, it was, looking back on it, it's crazy to think about, because again, I feel like I was still a baby. I was 20, and experiencing something like that is it's kind of once in a lifetime, and a wild phenomenon that we went through. And I'm super grateful for it. I think I did a lot of work on myself post Twilight and figuring out kind of who I was and what I was apart from Twilight. But generally speaking, like, it was just an incredible experience. I mean, that is once in a billion kind of opportunity to be a part of, and to see our fan base be like, it's not a traditional fan base. Like, we do really see that Twilight had such a profound impact on so many people in such a positive way. And Alice specifically, who I played in the series, I was kind of a lifesaver and a lifeline for a lot of people. And she actually, I didn't realize this until I started doing conventions and meeting with fans post, Twilight being over, but that she was kind of this safe place and this gay awakening for a lot of people, that I just think is I'm very honored to have been able to step into that role, and to have had, through Alice, have had that kind of positive impact on people. It's a very special thing. And it's also, I was just at Peter's house yesterday he had a barbecue, and our kids are a week apart. And so they have play dates all the time. And like, we just saw Nikki and met her new baby. And like, we have like these like Twilight get together still. And to, this far removed, still have such a bond is really special. When you go through something like Twilight, I think it does create this very special bond, and you do kind of become family, and there's this understanding of each other, and it's really special. And it's very cool to see us step into this next phase of our life together. The fact that we all have young kids together is very cool.
And how did you and your husband, Paul, meet?
So we met I was a part of this friend group, and it was a bunch of guys, and they were basically like my brothers. And Paul ended up moving in with one of them. And so he became a part of this friend group, and we became, best friends for years and years and years prior to dating. And then, it was the weird thing that until you experience it, it's hard to wrap your head around. But all of a sudden, one day I just looked at him differently and was like, oh, I could date you.
Right.
And I think
Yeah.
part of it was we were always in friend groups, and I had just gotten the house and he came over and we had like a 3-hour conversation, and just, it was very easy. And also the point in our lives that we were at, because through my 20s, like we were just crazy and figuring out who we were. And by the time we started dating, I think I was 26 and he was turning 25. And we'd kind of been at that point where we were really ready for something. And so it just kind of progressed. Now we have a baby and everything's wonderful.
Yes, yes. And I mean, even more than wonderful, because I feel like you are besties and co-founders with Paul's sister, Olivia. And like that scenario is also rare. I mean, how did that happen?
It's so funny. Everyone was like, do not do it. Don't go into business with your sister-in-law. And it was too perfect of a partnership not to. We had very blunt conversations and honest conversations at the start of this and during the beginning phases of Hummingway. And there were some ups and downs and there were some hard moments and hard conversations, but we were really dedicated to being honest with one another, because otherwise that's when things really start to fall apart. Like we kind of said, listen, if we start to feel animosity towards one another, we just need to put it out there and to figure it out. And
yeah.
And it's a business at the end of the day. And so there are hard things that come up, and we are very different people, which I think is super beneficial to Hummingway. We wanted to represent every menstruator. We didn't want it to be just my point of view or just her point of view. And I think that we are so different that it gives us kind of a really good balance. I'm obviously super glad we did another thing that worked really well and have a stronger relationship because of it. And everything was great. Then I got pregnant. And that was another big transition too, of figuring out how does this now work, because my reality is no longer the same. And so how do I continue to contribute realistically, understanding that I also wanted to be able to give everything to my child. And so it's like, Hummingway was like my first baby, and then Kingsley came along and everything shifted. And it's just, again, it's always a work in progress, and it's a partnership. And we had a very honest conversation about what I felt like I could handle and what I could really contribute and continue to be and show up the best possible way for Hummingway while feeling like I was available to show up for my family.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I hear that. And I think you can't connect the dots going forward. As Steve Jobs said, you have to look back. And I feel like the fact that you launched the company with Olivia and then got pregnant, it almost allowed you to be in this whole other realm, because menstruating and our hormonal imbalances and, postpartum are completely different phenomenons altogether. And you only know that after. And so you're kind of iterating the company as you're going through the life stage yourself.
Yep.
Which is like,
it ended up working out really well. But to your point, that's exactly what is happening. When we were launching Hummingway, a lot of the feedback we got was like, well, what about, this phase of a woman's life? Or what about this phase? Or what about menopause? And Olivia and I said, we don't know that world. We want to come from a very honest place. And we've said from the start, like, we don't know everything. We're learning. Like, we're not positioning ourselves as experts. We're positioning ourselves as people that want better, deserve more, and are going to be open and transparent about our process and journey along the way, and create a safe space for people to be able to educate themselves and to grow with us. So it didn't really make sense until I experienced it. And now that I've kind of am in the midst of it, it's kind of like a new fire, right? Where I'm going, it's eerily similar, my experience postpartum, to what I was experiencing with my menstrual cycle, and trying to find better non-toxic options and to kind of look at what's the root cause of the problem and where's my community and how do I grow here. It's the same thing postpartum, because I feel like it's another dark space. I mean, anything in women's health, I feel like there's a lot of kind of black holes basically that we need to be able to open up and to be able to educate people on. And the only way for me to really kind of know was to firsthand experience it.
Well, let's take it back. So, growing up in your adolescence, did you have really painful menstrual cycles? And that's where it's
I didn't, because I got on birth control when I was 16 and then got on hormonal birth control. And I think that's part of what the problem was, because we now know, and I now know, that when you're on birth control, you're not actually having your period, and you're covering up whatever symptoms may arise. It's just being covered up by this pill. And so you're not able to kind of nip anything in the bud. Everything just kind of was becoming more exacerbated. And so by the time I decided I wanted to get off hormonal birth control, when I decided I wanted to have kids, I like years in advance wanted to cleanse my body of everything. And so I got off any prescription I was ever on. I was prescribed like Xanax. I was prescribed Adderall, like all the things that I didn't really need. And those were all fine to come off of. Hormonal birth control sent me into like a tailspin. And all of a sudden I experienced every symptom under the sun. I went to my doctor, was met with, well, you can get back on hormonal birth control. You can take Accutane for your skin. You can take an antidepressant. You like just different pills to cover up what imbalance was going on rather than being looked at and saying like, you shouldn't have these imbalances. This is not something we have been kind of taught that this is the curse of being a woman and it's painful, kind of got to suck it up and it's a man's world and you need to compete and these things are all wrong, was the huge reason why we started Hummingway. Is I was just like, this is unacceptable and we deserve better. And it seems like what is out there right now isn't making any kind of, forward moving progress to be able to help us look at the root cause of the problem and to be able to operate at our full potential. Because unfortunately, it is what it is. The world a lot of times is set up for the male experience. And so we've really got a lot of work to do. But I will say that I'm very happy with the progress that we've made so far. I think Hummingway was part of a big movement, and we've seen a lot of people really come together and make a huge difference. And I love that.
This is what I love about disruptors like you, because we are such discerning consumers now. And we know that the big top retailers might use the cheaper way out, or, everything's chemical laden and not necessarily good for us. We're going to question. We're going to challenge what has already been out there for decades, because it's not necessarily the best and most effective route for us to take. And it's like, let's just problem solve our way through this and come up with something new, and that's exactly what you and Olivia did. And her being a naturopath, did she kind of influence you to think that like, no, we have to figure out this more holistic way. We don't have to.
Yeah. So when I came, like when Paul and I've always been pretty health conscious and I'm always trying to kind of grow and learn better myself. I'm very like the gym is like my antidepressant. I know that you have to heal postpartum, but I'm like, as soon as you can get some physical activity in to get those endorphins going, because we'll go into like what your hormones are doing. But I find it to be very helpful for me. But in any case, I started to really go much more in depth in this world whenever I got with Paul and met his mother. Actually is like a huge influence, obviously, on Olivia and myself, of really looking at more holistic ways of healing ourselves. And I'm super grateful for that, because now I'm kind of like passing that on to my family. I think again, like once you're educated on this stuff, it's like you see something that you can never unsee. And you recognize that like a lot of things out there that we were taught to believe were a protection for us or an authority figure that was going to take care of us is just not the case. And it really is up to you to be your own health advocate at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And can you break down firstly, actually, before we get into cycles, how'd you come up with the name?
The hum sound is actually one of the most calming sounds out there and kind of centering sounds out there. So that was a big influence. And then we also just love hummingbirds are super special to us and our family. They're all around our house. And I love the fact that they can fly up, down, back, forward. And it kind of signified to us that like we shouldn't be put in this box and we don't need to have these boundaries. There's so much more to understand about ourselves and our bodies. Yeah. And then we thought that this is the way that it should be. And so we kind of put it all together.
That is so beautiful. I love that. And I think it's something that resonates with me, given my cultural background as well. I'm Indian, and Om is just this word that's so all encompassing and visceral because it reverberates when you hum. And it's, I completely understand how that has an effect, like a positive effect on you.
Yeah.
Let's get into cycles. I'm in my luteal phase right now. So the fact that I have a blazer on and makeup is like a big fucking deal.
Yeah.
Because I just want to be in my loungers. But I only came to know of all these phases. I wish I knew at 16 what all this was. But walk us through what these, phases in our cycle are.
It can seem like a lot, but I think if you, just have the base understanding that like your menstrual cycle is not just when you bleed. So you have your follicular phase, and that's generally speaking when you feel fantastic and your skin is glowing. You can be out in the world and you feel generally very comfortable in that space. And then we go into ovulation, which again, like is I think when your skin is at its absolute peak and it's this wonderful thing, you feel more sexually inclined kind of in your body. And then right after that, there's this dip and you hit your luteal phase, which you want to be at home in your sweatpants. And the one thing I will say about the luteal phase, though it gets a bad rap, is that the amount of focus that you can have during your luteal phase is something you should tune into, because you're generally not going to be as social. But when you're at home, you can have the most immense amount of focus out of any phase in your cycle. And so if you have like reading to do, that would be the time to do it, or studying. And then you have your bleed and your menstrual cycle. And so one, I think, is just understanding how you feel in those different moments, and understanding that like we're not programmed like men who are, their hormones are super steady. Ours are up and down and up and down, and it's a constant flow. And so kind of understanding yourself and your body during those moments is super helpful, because there's nothing we can do about us having these 4 phases. But what you can do is start really tapping in and tuning into your body and how you feel during those moments, and then catering your lifestyle to where you are in your menstrual cycle and what your body and your mind need. And that's looking at your workout, what you're eating, what you're scheduling. Again, and this is, the world moves at a very fast pace. And so it's unrealistic to say that you could, not schedule any meetings when you're on your luteal phase.
Right.
But again, understanding, having education, and I think it gives you there's a little bit more self-love there, and understanding why you're feeling the way that you're feeling. It's also super helpful if you don't want to get pregnant. I think this is another reason we really need to be teaching this in school prior to girls getting their period, is because I had no idea for the longest time. I just really, that's why I was on hormonal birth control, is I was just hoping that I didn't get pregnant. And so when you really break it down, you understand that you can get pregnant when you're ovulating. There's about, I would say, to be safe, like 4 days out of the month, really.
Yeah, it's a very small window.
Yeah. The best way to be able to test for that, in my experience, is basal body temperature testing, because if you test this and you're consistent, you have a slight rise in your temperature before you ovulate. And this is what I used whenever I got off hormonal birth control, and it has a really great success rate. And so I would recommend people really looking into that as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to talk through your products and how you provide solutions for us. And so this is it. Thank you so much for sending that.
Yeah.
I love that it opens with, let's patch up your relationship with your period pain. So cute. I love puns. And this is the patch. So what exactly is the cycle soother? I can't wait to use this like next week.
Yeah. So we decided to go with the cycle soother. There's a transdermal patch. It has 6 non-toxic ingredients in it. So nothing you're putting in your body is going to have any adverse effects or be dangerous for you. Basically, you put the patch on. It's up to your discretion. So some people have ovulation pain. It works really well for that. Myself, I noticed that like my first day of my period is the worst. And so I put the patch on during my first day. Some people put it on the night before. Again, it's really tuning into your body and figuring out what works best for you. But basically, you put the patch on. It is a 24-hour patch. It has a steady release of ingredients. So you can slap it on, forget about it, sleep with it, which is really helpful for people that I know a lot of people experience the most amount of pain at night and have trouble sleeping. So you can put it on, sweat, shower with it, and kind of let it go to work. And we have found that it's extremely helpful with mitigating period pain, but also a lot of people rave about the fact that it stops bloating for them, which was kind of a nice surprise that we didn't push forefront and center, but that's been really helpful. Again, with like anxiety levels, we see it very, that it's very helpful as well. So we're super excited about the patch and the efficacy. We spent 2 years testing out like 24 different iterations to make sure that this was going to be the most effective version possible. Because at Hummingway, it's really, really important to us that our products work and work well, because I think we are making a lot of progress as far as understanding our bodies, but there are a lot of companies that are capitalizing and trying to make money off of that. And I think, we've dealt with these issues for so long that it's really not fair that you think you're going to get some reprieve and then get a product that just doesn't work. And we're super proud and stand by our product and, have yet to get negative feedback. And that's huge for us.
Can you tell us a little bit about what goes into the ingredients and formula?
We're not doctors and we're not experts in this space. And so we wanted to have people at the top of their field that could kind of give us some guidance as far as what the best protocols were and answers to some of the questions that we may not have the answers to. So basically how it shook down is that me and Olivia we were our guinea pigs and test subjects and said, what are the things, we did a lot of reading and said, what are the things that can naturally have an effect on your menstrual cycle? And figured out these ingredients and said, okay, let's start testing them out and test out levels. And when to that point, basically sent them to our advisory board and said, is there any red flags here? Do you think there's any way that we can improve this? And once we got the okay from them and any tweaks from our medical advisory board, then we sent it off to a formulator. And then we started working on the dose levels of, what do we need more of to make the biggest impact here? And everything from like the adhesive and the smell and the length of the efficacy of the product. And so a lot of back and forth for us. And then we finally came to what you see today.
Wow. And then it's a suite of products. What are some of the others?
So this is the first one that we have, the only one that we have out now. Right now we have some things in R&D, but the only thing I can really mention about it is just that the next phase is mood, stabilization, because we kind of poll our audience and everything that we create is based on feedback that we got. And so the first pain point that we saw was menstrual cramps, aches and pains. And the second thing we saw is how do I stabilize my mood during this time? And so right now we're working on that. And then again, another thing that's super important to us is making sure that we have the most effective delivery method. So a lot of the things that you see aren't necessarily things that are out there already, but are going to work the best possible, the quickest possible. Because a lot of times, holistic medicine, and naturopathic medicine does work, but a lot of times you have to do it for months at a time to really kind of see the difference. And of course, we said, let's figure out how we can make this happen as quickly as possible. And so that's kind of the journey we're on right now.
And now let's get into motherhood and, your motherhood journey.
Yes.
Tell us about it.
Yeah. So I feel like the best way to describe it is motherhood is and postpartum is like a roller coaster with peaks and valleys. There's never kind of one straight path, much like our menstrual cycle and our hormones. It's always up and down. And so that's kind of what I've experienced. And I have been open about the fact that the first 4 months for me were really difficult. I couldn't get kind of a handle. I felt like I was always treading water and always trying to, I feel like I was chasing the old version of myself and really had to relinquish that control and understand that this is the new version of me, which is wonderful. But also, it's just difficult when you're trying to navigate. I think day 3 or 4 postpartum is the steepest hormone drop that you will have experienced in your life, which a lot of people don't know. And I'm very grateful. I had a midwife. I did a home birth and she was kind of my lifeline during that because I was just like, why am I'm bursting into tears. I don't understand what's happening. And then she gave me that information and it just all of a sudden made things much more bearable. And so, that was first 4 months it was trying for me. And then after that was when things really started to kind of settle in and I thought, oh, I am good at this and I can handle this. And I do love this new reality. And I think that's important to share because it's, again, there's this expectation of it being like baby bliss all the time. And that's just not reality. It's tough and it's amazing and it's blissful and beautiful, but there's a lot going on. It's really multifaceted. And so then I hit kind of, the 6 month point, which became fun because you start seeing, I think, a lot of the energy and the work that you put in, you start seeing you get back. And now that she's 10.5 months, they're hilarious. She's so, you start to see their personality really come out in full force. So that's all amazing. I've become the self-love is back, for a while, even though I was trying to love myself and I was trying to be understanding, you just want to be this perfect version and you don't, and there's so many, it's like you're the same but different, right? You're the same but different person. You're the same but different from other moms and their journey. And so I had a lot of issues with latch and with milk production for a long time. And it was really stressful to me because I just wanted and everyone, whatever choice you want to make for your family is the right choice. But I really wanted to breastfeed. I didn't want to put her on formula. And I wanted this experience. I kept having all these ups and downs and dips in production. And finally, hit a point where I was just like, if my kid is fed and healthy and happy, then that's what it is. And so now sometimes, I did a lot of research, but I found Bobbi is the formula that I use now whenever there's a milk production dip. And sometimes she gets breastfed, sometimes there's pumped milk, and sometimes she gets formula. And that's all okay. And once I kind of finally let go of the reins and like let go of the reins that like she's not going to be perfectly like I'm not, sleep training is another really big hot topic. And because I didn't want to do traditional sleep training, like she's a little, she's not a robot. And so it's a little all over. And sometimes when she wasn't sleeping through the night, I kept going, what's wrong with me? Why can't I figure this out? Why can't I teach my child how to sleep? And it's like, you need to pump the brakes and understand that like she's only been on this earth for now 10 months. Like she's figuring it out as she goes. You're figuring it out as you go. Why don't you just give yourself a break and understand that like you care and you love her and she's safe and she's fed and like it will all be okay. And once that happened, I was like, oh, this is wonderful. Great.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I love that. I think it's so important to keep it real, give yourself grace and embrace every phase, even the hard moments.
Yeah.
There is no way to be like, oh yeah, we know what's up. Especially as a baby, she can't communicate it anyway. It's like this unraveling and there's a beauty in that.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm super grateful to have Paul as a partner too. Cause there is like a lot of value in the tap in. Like there's just, cause there's, I'm human. And so like, I've gotten frustrated, at times where like you've had 4 hours of sleep and you're like, why won't you just sleep? And like, anytime he hears like any frustration, like I'm just like, I need you to come in. And I think that's super important too, is like not to try and just handle it yourself because once you get dysregulated, your child feels that and it's going to make the situation a lot more difficult. And like, there's no shame in saying like, I just can't handle this situation right now. Can you come in and relieve me? That to me has been really important.
Oh, tell us about a mom sense moment you had. And by that, I mean, it's our built-in sixth sense, our intuition. It never steers us wrong.
So when she was a lot younger, we put her in the car seat and we like started driving and I said, pull over. Something it's not right, and pulled over, and like the way she was sitting, like her airway was like a little bit obstructed. And so and the car seat thing, that's another thing. I'm like, take a course, like do as much research as you can there, because it's there, those things are super critical and important. And so I just had this feeling and was like, I need to like readjust her, and I did, and she's totally fine. But Paul was like, wow, how did you know that? And then I actually, I don't know what the end of the story would have been here, but I was taking her to her first swimming lesson, and I didn't have my car. I had my husband took the car that I usually take, and so I put our extra car seat and his car and was kind of like buckling her in. And for whatever reason, I like put her in and like started the car. And I just was like, I don't know. And then at one point, like I got this in my head, was just like, don't go, do not go, do not go. And I was like, all right, well, we're not going to the swimming lesson. And like, I don't know what would have happened, what could have happened if it was just like a blip, but it was like in those moments, it's a swim lesson, whatever, she can miss it. But like, there was just something that was like, this does not feel right. You need to stay home. And so, we did. And I think that's super important. You have to trust that because it is your mom sense. And like, it's so spot on every time.
Yeah, it really is. No one can question.
And there's right. And you just always know too, like if the baby's crying, you to walk up and you're like, she's hungry. And like, what? You have to like feed her. I'm like, she's hungry.
Yeah.
You just know. Yeah.
It's so true. Yeah. It catches you off guard sometimes. You're like, I don't know how I know, but I know.
Yeah. Well, like we're always like the moms and the children are connected cellularly and there's something to that. And I think it's the same thing. I'm like, we're all connected. And like, once you start paying attention to the universe and the people around you, like you start to feel that. And it's just really like very obvious with your child.
Right. Yes. What is a quote that you live by that you're definitely going to teach Kingsley as a life lesson?
That your best today will not necessarily be your best tomorrow, and your best the next day will be different. And I think that's, again, giving yourself grace and understanding that we are just humans and we're not robots, and we're going to be able to kind of live life and compete on a different level one day than we are the next. The other thing too is that like if you're going to fail upwards, because I have a really difficult time with failure sometimes and have to work really hard to understand that that's part of the process. And my husband has like he looks at like he's just like go for it 1,000%, like everything will be okay, and like it's okay if you fail because it's a learning experience. And I was programmed a little bit different, and so I think that's something that's very important for me to pass on for her to understand, because we want her to be able to thrive and explore and fall down and get back up and not put so much pressure on everything.
And your mom haul products that you swear by. I got some with the package.
I created like a postpartum like period care kit because I don't know when I still haven't got my period back, but I want to be sure that I'm ready for it. So we have the cycle soother, the Hummingway cycle soother patch, and their proof period panties, which I love come in thongs as well. Cause I just wear them a lot of the times now. Cause I'm like, it's going to happen. I know it's going to happen soon. I just don't know when. And so kind of being as prepared as possible. Salt makes the menstrual cups that I use are salt. I love those. And then Belly Bandit, I have like the compression wear because I find I'm sure that I'm going to be bloated and I just want to be able to feel my best. And so that's super important. I use an app called Aura, but like get whatever app you want, but any kind of like mental health, meditation, breath work, affirmation app that you can get, I think is super important. Again, like I have a ring for it, but you can use there's actual like temperature thermometer testers too, but like getting something to test your basal body temperature is important because your period postpartum is going to be different than any of your periods before. Like I kind of look at it as it's going to be like my first period again. I'm not going to have the education or understanding. Your body has gone through a huge transformation. You have a lot more uterine lining. So you're probably going to have a heavier period that can be irregular for like up to a year after. And so just kind of having like I have ovulation strips, like everything in place to kind of re-educate myself on what my period is postpartum.
And lastly, where can my listeners find you and Hummingway?
So my Instagram is Ashley Greene. You can go to our Hummingway on Instagram or ourhummingway.com.
Ashley,
Thank
this
you.
was such a joy, and the legacy that you're leaving, Kingsley, is phenomenal. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed my interview with Ashley Greene Khoury. Ashley, you are an inspiration, and I'm so glad that I got to get to know you better and your co-founder and sister-in-law, Olivia. Definitely check out my IG Live with both of these women, and you will find that it was so interactive and helps us all navigate what women's health looks like now. Be sure to visit their website, ourhummingway.com, and use my exclusive code MOM30 to receive a discount. Again, that's MOM30 to receive 30% off on ourhummingway.com. I'd like to give a special shout out to Sarah Strasbach of GSPR, Godfrey Social PR, for making this interview happen. You can follow me on Instagram at Kanika Chadda Gupta, and don't be afraid to slide into my DMs. I love reading your messages and respond to everyone. You can also write to me and my team at thatstotalmomsense@gmail.com. Watch the video version of this interview on YouTube. Just type in That's Total Mom Sense. And you can visit my website where all of the videos and interviews with my incredible guests are stored. And that's thatstotalmomsense.com. Thank you again for being part of my tribe. Remember, always trust your mom sense and dad sense. It never steers us wrong. Stay strong, parents.